Miami.
It's a city that practically invented the term real estate frenzy,
Yeah.
But for today's deep dive...
We're zeroing in on a neighborhood that's always a step ahead.
I'm over of the curve.
Edgewater.
We've got a recent report from Miami Real Group.
And trust me,
these folks live and breathe Miami real estate.
Right.
They've got their finger on the pulse of this market.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let's say you're sitting on a comfy pile of cash.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, Miami sounds nice.
Yeah.
What's the luxury condo scene in Edgewater whispering in your ear right now? The first thing that grabs your attention
is this compared to last year.
Sales are up a hefty 35.7%.
Wow.
Not just that.
Edgewater's outpacing
some of Miami's other hotspots.
Really?
And hold on to your hats.
Because between Q1 and Q2 of this year,
sales skyrocketed
by a jaw-dropping 72.7%. Wow. That kind of jumps, that's got to tell us something, right?
It certainly suggests a market with a lot of momentum.
It does.
But here's where things get really interesting. We're seeing a bit of a paradox.
Okay.
Sales are booming.
But the price per square foot has decided to play it cool.
Interesting.
Almost like it's holding its breath.
I mean, the report shows a slight dip year over year, down to $944 per square foot.
But let's not forget,
compared to other areas in greater downtown Miami over the past 5 years, so we've got this surge in buyers.
But the price per square foot isn't exactly mirroring that enthusiasm.
Yeah.
What's the story there?
It's a great question.
And it suggests that there's more to this story than just a simple supply and demand equation.
We might be witnessing a subtle shift in the market, a recalibration of sorts.
Interesting.
It's possible that we're seeing a change in buyer preferences.
Yeah.
Instead of just chasing square footage.
Buyers might be prioritizing different features or layouts.
Right.
And that makes me think about something I read recently. Apparently, there's been a surge in demand for home office space.
Yeah.
With more people working remotely these days.
It makes sense that buyers, especially in the luxury market, are looking for larger units.
Maybe even an extra room they can turn into a dedicated workspace.
Right.
That could explain why we're seeing this stability in the price per square foot despite the sales volume.
It could?
It's like those puzzle pieces are starting to fit together.
Okay, so we've got this intriguing sales surge.
A price per square foot trend that's holding steady.
But what about the inventory situation in Edgewater?
This is where things get even more interesting, dare I say, even a little bit spicy.
Inventory always throws a wrench to the works.
Right.
It's the age-old dance of supply and demand.
And in Edgewater.
It seems like that dance floor is getting a little crowded.
Quarter over quarter.
Inventory has plummeted.
By 41.4%.
Wow.
That's a significant drop for anyone thinking about selling their luxury condo.
Yeah.
That's got to sound like music to their ears.
Right.
Less competition.
Right. Yeah.
But then we look at the year-over-year figures.
And things take an interesting turn.
Okay.
Because year over year,
inventory is actually up by 30.8%. It's almost as if the market is sending mixed signals.
It's true.
It can feel like you're getting two different weather reports for the same day. But let's break this down.
That sharp decrease in inventory this past quarter.
It's likely directly tied to those strong sales figures we talked about earlier.
Right.
High demand tends to gobble up available inventory.
Yeah.
So
if you're eager to buy in Edgewater right now,
be prepared to act fast.
Right.
For sellers, it could mean a faster sale, potentially.
Okay.
But there's another layer to this, isn't there?
Yeah.
Something we need to consider.
You're absolutely right.
Despite that recent drop.
Yeah, Edgewater's inventory still sits above what's typically considered a balanced market.
Okay.
We're talking about that sweet spot of a 9 to 12-month supply.
And that, my friend, is a crucial detail for both buyers and sellers to understand.
So what's the takeaway here?
We're not in a full-blown frenzy where properties are being snatched up the second they hit the market.
Right.
Buyers still have options.
They can afford to be a bit more discerning.
It's not a bad thing at all, just an interesting nuance.
It's all about those nuances, isn't it?
It is.
And speaking of nuance,
let's shift gears for a moment.
And talk about how long those luxury condos are lingering on the market.
Okay.
Because even in a seemingly hot market,
this little data point can tell us a lot.
Sure.
We're talking about days on market.
DOM, for those who like to impress the real estate agents.
And in Edgewater.
DOM is up.
Okay.
Like 30% higher compared to this time last year.
Wow.
Now, the report points to a possible explanation.
A rise in older properties being relisted.
Okay.
But I'm curious.
This is your expert perspective.
What else could be contributing to this extended wait?
Is there more to the story?
Well, it's certainly something to pay attention to.
One possibility is that buyers are taking their sweet time.
Okay.
They're not rushing into decisions.
Which could indicate a more discerning and informed buyer pool in Edgewater these days.
Interesting.
They're doing their research.
Weighing their options carefully.
Wouldn't that make sense?
Given everything else we've discussed.
It would.
It's like buyers are picking up on these subtle cues.
These shifts in the market dynamics.
They're realizing they might have a little more leverage than they initially thought.
You're hitting the nail on the head.
This isn't necessarily a red flag.
But rather a signal that the market might be entering a new phase.
One where buyers are becoming more strategic and selective.
Okay.
They're not just looking at a property in isolation.
They're considering the bigger picture, the long-term trends.
Which brings us to a really important point.
Knowledge truly is power, especially in a market as dynamic as Miami real estate.
And speaking of the bigger picture,
we can't ignore the elephant in the room, or should I say the heat wave on the horizon.
Okay.
Because when it comes to Miami real estate,
it's not just about the weather.
Right. You're absolutely right.
We have to talk about seasonality.
Right.
Miami has a rhythm all its own.
And that rhythm significantly impacts the real estate market, particularly in luxury enclaves like Edgewater.
Yeah,
we're talking about the influx of high net worth individuals, international buyers. They bring a different energy.
And that energy tends to ripple through markets, like the Edgewater condo scene.
Yeah.
And this is where the timing of that report we're dissecting becomes really interesting, wouldn't you say?
It's a fantastic point.
We're looking at Q2 data.
Which is valuable, but it's just a snapshot.
It's like trying to understand the entire plot of a movie based on a single scene.
Right.
To get the full picture.
We need to consider the seasonal forces at play.
Precisely, as we move into the latter half of 2024.
What should our savvy listeners be watching for in Edgewater?
What are those seasonal whispers we need to tune into?
Well,
if I were a betting person...
Yeah.
And for the record, I'm not.
I'd keep a close eye on interest rates.
Okay.
They've been a bit unpredictable lately.
And any significant swings will impact affordability for buyers.
Yeah.
Especially in the luxury market.
That's like a ripple effect, right?
Interest
rate shift.
And suddenly, the whole affordability equation changes.
Right. Which then influences demand, pricing strategies.
Sure.
It's all connected.
And let's not forget about the global economic stage.
Right.
Miami's luxury market.
Particularly in prime locations like Edgewater, attracts a lot of international buyers, economic conditions abroad, especially in key feeder markets.
Can't be ignored.
It's like this intricate web, isn't it?
It is.
You've got local market trends and then these global economic currents all weaving together to influence what happens in a micro market like Edgewater.
You got it.
And just when you think you've untangled the web,
something new gets caught.
Right.
Don't underestimate the impact of local factors.
Okay.
New developments popping up.
Changes in zoning regulations.
Those can throw a curveball into the mix.
So it sounds like the name of the game in Edgewater is adaptability.
You've got to stay informed.
Be ready to pivot.
And maybe have a crystal ball handy.
A crystal ball couldn't hurt.
But in all seriousness,
knowledge and a good dose of flexibility are key in a market like this.
Okay.
The most successful players are the ones who stay informed,
anticipate shifts,
and are prepared to adjust their strategies accordingly.
Which brings us back to the amazing report that's been guiding our deep dive today.
Miami Real Group.
They really know their stuff.
Absolutely.
Their local expertise is evident throughout this report.
Yeah.
They're not just looking at numbers on a spreadsheet.
They're connecting those numbers to the real-world dynamics of the market.
And that's what we're all about here at the Deep Dive.
Right.
We're not just skimming the surface. We're putting on our scuba gear and exploring those fascinating depths.
Exactly.
We're empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
But I know what you're thinking.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Looked at a lot of data sales figures.
Price trends.
Inventory analysis. But what does it all mean for you?
The listener who's sitting there thinking,
should I buy?
Should I sell?
What's the verdict?
Those are the million-dollar questions, aren't they?
They are. Yeah, and unfortunately, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Okay.
Real estate decisions are incredibly personal.
They depend on your financial situation.
Your risk tolerance.
Your long-term goals.
Right.
It's a very individual equation.
And that's why we have experts like you to help us decipher the market signals as we head into the final stretch of this deep dive.
Let's distill everything down to those essential takeaways.
Okay.
What are the key insights our listeners should carry with them as they navigate the exciting world of Miami real estate?
Well, if we had to sum it up.
I'd say Edgewater is like that friend who always keeps you guessing.
Yeah.
It's a market full of contradictions.
But those contradictions are where things get interesting.
Right.
We've got this surge in sales activity.
Which usually screams hot market.
But then we see the price per square foot staying relatively stable.
Right.
It's like a tug of war between supply and demand.
With neither side willing to give an inch.
Hey,
and let's not forget about the inventory puzzle.
Right.
Lower than last quarter.
Which favors sellers.
But still above a balanced market.
Which gives buyers some breathing room.
Yeah.
It creates this fascinating tension.
This push and pull that keeps everyone on their toes.
For sure.
And amidst all of this,
we've got this curious trend of longer days on market.
Yeah.
It seems counterintuitive in a market with strong sales.
But as we discussed,
it could signal a shift towards a more discerning strategic buyer in Edgewater.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Buyers who are paying attention to those subtle cues, those nuances that often get overlooked.
Right.
They're factoring in things like interest rate fluctuations.
Global economic influence.
Even local policy changes.
Yeah.
These are savvy investors who are doing their homework.
They are.
And that's the biggest takeaway here, isn't it?
It is.
Knowledge is your most valuable asset in a market like this.
For sure.
It's not enough to just follow the headlines.
You've got to dig deeper.
Understand the underlying currents.
Right. Be prepared to adapt your strategy as the market evolves.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that's why this deep dive has been so insightful.
Right.
We've peeled back the layers.
Gone beyond the surface level trends.
And uncovered those crucial nuances that often make all the difference.
Yeah?
It's like we've been on a treasure hunt.
But instead of gold doubloons.
Because we've been searching for those golden nuggets of knowledge, those insights that can give you an edge in a competitive market.
For sure.
And speaking of golden nuggets.
Let's leave our listeners with something to ponder.
Okay.
Something to spark their curiosity as they continue their own exploration of the Miami real estate scene.
This report gave us a fantastic glimpse into Edgewater's market during Q2.
But as we discussed earlier,
real estate is all about timing.
So here's the question that I think every savvy investor should be asking themselves right now.
How might seasonality,
particularly as we head into those prime season months,
influence Edgewater's market dynamics?
Will that sales surge we saw in Q2 continue?
Or will we see a shift as we head into the latter half of 2024?
That's the million-dollar question.
That's the million-dollar question.
And the beauty is,
the answer will unfold right before our eyes in the coming months.
Right.
It's like watching a high-stakes game of strategy.
Only in this game.
The players are buyers and sellers.
And the prize is a slice of the Miami real estate dream.
Exactly.
And just like in any good game,
the players who stay informed,
adapt to changing conditions,
right,
and maybe have a little bit of luck on their side.
Those are the ones who usually come out on top.
For sure.
And who knows?
Maybe we'll revisit this topic in a few months.
See how those seasonal forces played out.
And uncover a whole new layer of insights.
Because that's the thing about the real estate market.
It never stands still for long.
That's right.
For those of you who want to dive even deeper into the Edgewater market,
I highly recommend checking out Miami Real Group.
They're the masterminds behind the report that's guided our deep dive today.
Their local expertise is invaluable.
It is.
You can find their contact information right on the report itself.
Tell them the deep dive sent you.
And with that,
we've reached the end of another insightful journey.
Remember,
knowledge is power.
And in the world of real estate,
fortune favors the well-informed.
Until next time,
stay curious.
And happy investing.
And happy investing.